What's good, everybody? It is the Super Triple JAT here, and because Resident Evil Village is dropping next year and Chris is one of the main characters of the game, I think it's about time for me to talk about Chris Redfield and his history in the entire franchise. And this is going to be a two-parter because there was so much about Chris in the entire franchise that I couldn't put it all in one video. Chris Redfield was born in 1973. Not much is known about Chris when he was young, but Chris and his sister Claire both lost their parents at a young age. Chris joined the US Air Force, getting trained for both planes and helicopters. During that, he served his whole career with his homie Barry Burton. Chris had strong convictions which had kind of problems with the senior officers. He left the US Air Force for unknown reasons. He could have left because he got discharged, or he just left out of his own free will. After that, he joined STARS. While he was working at STARS, he made multiple friends there, but the closest friend he made in STARS is Jill Valentine. In 1998, Raccoon City was haunted by serious cannibal murderers in the Arklay Mountains. On July 23rd, STAR's Bravo team traveled to the mountains to see what was the problem. Then they lost radio contact. The following night, the Alpha team was sent to go check what happened to them. They went to the mountains and they saw the corpse of the pilot. Soon after, they were attacked by Cerebus. Alpha team was unable to fight them, so they ran to the mansion. During the STAR's investigation of the mansion, Chris, Barry, Wesker, and Jill went their separate ways. Chris found Bravo team member Rebecca Chambers, whose team was also sheltering in the mansion. They found out that the mansion is linked to Umbrella, a pharmaceutical company. A laboratory was also found on the grounds, which was used for illegal bioweapon research on the behalf of the American military. Finding out that Wesker was working for Umbrella and had received orders by the company to destroy the facility and cover up their connections, Wesker was showing them the Tyrant, and then he released it. But the Tyrant did betray Wesker. So Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca defeated the Tyrant and escaped the mansion before it self-destruct. The whole team wanted to report Umbrella, but Chief Iron said no because he was taking bribes from Umbrella. Then he shut down the entire STARS program. So Chris obtained information about the G-Virus and was suspecting Irons to be corrupt. So he asked the FBI to handle the investigation of Irons. Chris decided to do an investigation on the headquarters in Europe with Barry Burton. So Chris started doing an aggressive streak among the other officers. For the actions he was doing, he was suspended and gave him a good reason to go to Europe as a vacation. Chris was investigating Umbrella, but Leon Kennedy contacted Chris, telling them that his sister got captured by Umbrella. Chris immediately traveled to the Rockford Islands to rescue her. When he got there, he went to explore the island, noticing that Claire left the island, and then he was confronted by Wesker, who revealed that he has superhuman abilities. Chris discovered that Claire was in the Umbrella facility in the Antarctic. So he piloted one of the jets that was in the island and he landed in the Ross Ice Shelf. During that, Wesker himself was also going to the Antarctic to go look for Alexia Ashford, who has the remaining sample of the T. Veronica virus. Chris found Claire in a replica of Spencer's mansion. But the reunion was cut short because Claire was planning to look for her fellow ally Steve Burnside. Chris watched Wesker and a mutated Alexia. Wesker was demanding the Veronica virus from Alexia, and then Wesker left and forced Chris to fight Alexia by himself, knocking her down temporarily. After Steve's death, Chris activated the self-destruct sequence and reunited with his sister, trying to escape, but Alexia reappeared trying to stop them. Chris and Claire activated a special weapon known as the linear launcher, but that weapon needed a charge. Chris told Claire to wait for him at the jet that he came here with, while he would deal with Alexia. The linear launcher finally charged and one shot ended her. The whole building was getting destroyed, and then Wesker captured Claire. Chris chasing Wesker, Chris ended up convincing Wesker to release her, saying that Chris was the one he really wanted. Chris also found out that Wesker was going to extract the T. Veronica virus from Burnside's corpse, saying that Steve could be resurrected at that. Chris engaged Wesker to hand-to-hand combat, but obviously lost because Wesker has superhuman abilities. A desperate Chris caused several hanging gliders to topple on top of Wesker's head. Even this wasn't enough to kill Wesker, but the two of them dazed and they were not able to continue fighting, especially because the self-destruct sequence that's happening. Chris goes to the jet where Claire was waiting in, and they escaped right before the facility exploded. After the incident, Chris reunited with Jill as partners for an anti-umbrella and bioweapon task force. Working with each other with the next 5 years, they did everything that they could to expose Umbrella. Chris and Jill found an anti-BOW agency to investigate Umbrella and to destroy bioweapons. In early 2003, they heard reports of a mutated wolves that were attacking the Caucasus region. Upon arriving in the nearby village, they were attacked by zombies, eventually finding a little girl named Anna who was hiding inside her house. Anna told them that the adults often gather at the silo. Chris and Jill head over there to see if there was any survivors. When they got there, they saw that the whole silo was deserted, except for the corpse of the chief, who was frozen to death. They realized that the chief froze to death in there trying to escape from zombies. They both exited the silo seeing that Wesker was outside, who was congratulating them on their dumb luck. Chris accused Wesker of being behind the events that happened to this village, but Wesker insisted that there was nothing more than an accident, claiming that the whole village was cursed. Chris wanted an answer, but Wesker left them to deal with the Hunter Deltas that got released. They managed to defeat the Hunters and went off chasing Wesker. Arriving at Anna's house, they found Wesker attempting to access a safe. Wesker explained that Umbrella had set up multiple hangars all over the world, and the most part, the village was actually Umbrella employees. At this point, Anna revealed that her father was given a pendant, which Wesker took and used as the key for the safe. However, the safe contained explosives meant for Anna's protection, forcing Chris, Jill, and Anna to escape. Joining the region's biohazard containment unit, Chris and Jill carried out a full-scale assault on the facility in that area. Eventually, they were confronted by the new experimental bioweapon named Talos. Sergei Vladimir revealed himself to be the creator and sealed Chris and Jill in the room where Talos was there, and Sergei activated the monster. Having no choice but to fight the Talos, Chris and Jill were successfully able to defeat Talos, finally ending Umbrella once and for all. After escaping the facility, Chris and Jill were still lamented that Wesker was still out there. Though the troubles where Umbrella was over, it was still a matter of time before they had to deal with Wesker once again. After Umbrella collapsed in 2003, it became clear that the rogue researchers succeeded in selling the company's assets off to the black market with terrorist organizations and rival firms. In response to this new threat, Chris and Jill helped create the BSAA, declared to stop the creation and the usage of bioweapons. The BSAA was informed that the resurrection of the terrorist group Veltro, who was involved with the destruction of the floating city Terra Grigia. In order to investigate this rumor, the BSAA director O'Brien sent Chris and his new partner Jessica to a mountain range in Finland, where Veltro's hideout was rumored to be located. Once in the area, Chris and Jessica lost contact to the BSAA headquarters, forcing them to finish the mission without radio support. When they arrived at the peak of the mountain, Chris and Jessica witnessed a terrible crash with a cargo plane. Arriving in the area's crash, they saw traces of the virus alongside a corpse of the pirate, who was suspected to be a Veltro operative. Chris and Jessica discovered an airbase where Veltro was using as a hideout. Soon after this, O'Brien re-established connection with his agents and learned of their findings. Chris and Jessica are also notified that Jill and her new partner Parker have gone missing in the middle of the sea trying to look for Chris and Jessica. Chris and Jessica immediately returned to headquarters, taking a chopper and setting off to another mission to go find Veltro's ghost ship. However, there was no further information about the cruise ship's current location, but eventually they did get the coordinates of Jill's location, and they found out that they were on a ship called the Queen Zenobia. Landing on the ship's deck, Chris and Jessica began researching about their lost comrades. However, they soon realized that they were actually on the sister ship called Queen Samaradas, which is basically a carbon copy of the Queen Zenobia ship. Chris ended up getting the location of the actual Queen Zenobia ship, and they started heading there. When they approached the Zenobia boat, Chris and Jessica were attacked by a BOW called the Malakota, but they managed to frighten it off and they entered the ship. They finally found Parker and Valentine in the ship's casino, where Jessica shot an armed Veltro agent. Unmasking the dead agent, they discovered that it was in fact Raymond Vesper, an FBC operative. After this, Chris and Jill partnered up once again and started heading to the ship's lab in order to stop the T-Abyss virus before it actually contaminated the ocean. And during that, Parker and Jessica were searching a way to delay the sinking of the Queen Zenobia. Once in the lab, Chris and Jill managed to neutralize the T-Abyss virus permanently, but not knowing that their actions were actually monitored by Morgan Lansdale, the mastermind behind the Terra Grecian attack. While escaping the sinking ship, Chris and Jill found a wounded Parker. However, they were unable to save him from his seemingly fall to death, but he managed to survive. Outside the Queen Zenobia, they were attacked by the same BOW that Chris and Jessica fought, and they managed to destroy it. However, the mission was not over. Director O'Brien came clean with Jill and Chris, revealing that he orchestrated the Veltro conspiracy. He also confirmed that there was a third ship called the Queen Dido and told him to go there to get video proof of Morgan's schemes. Chris and Jill head for the Queen's Dido's remains and discover that Jack Norman, the leader of Veltro, was still alive in the wreckage. Filled with vengeance against Morgan, Norman injected himself with the T-Abyss virus and became an ultimate abyss. Chris and Jill were able to destroy the creature and retrieve Norman's PDA, revealing the truth behind Terra Grigia. After that, the BSAA actually reformed as a Global United Nations Special Operations Unit, and Chris became a Special Operations Agent. Partnering with Jill, the two became engaged in various operations, including bioweapon terrorism in Asia, destroying a bioweapons lab in South America, and arresting traffickers in Europe. Chris held the Level 10 Action Authority in the BSAA, and the numbers of operations he actively participated he elevated to the top among the BSAA agents. In 2006, Chris and Jill received information that they found the location of Oswald E. Spencer and raided his mansion. Entering the mansion, they soon realized that the bodyguards of Spencer were already brutally murdered. Going through all the troubles in the mansion, they found where Spencer was hiding, but they were greeted by Wesker, who already killed Spencer minutes before the arrival. The three fought, but Wesker had the advantage because of his superpower. At the end, Wesker was going to do a final blow to Chris, but Jill tackled Wesker out of a nearby window and they both fell down a cliff. The BSAA did a 3-month search trying to look for Jill's body, but no success. Jill was officially declared dead. For the next 3 years, Chris refused to believe that Jill's dead and put himself to every mission available to find some kind of lead of Jill's whereabouts. Chris eventually heard some rumors that Jill was still alive, but it was never confirmed until 2009. In 2009, Chris was more active than ever, always participating in a lot of missions. That year, Chris discovered a plan for a bioweapons deal. Chris went to Kajuju alongside his new partner Sheva to arrest the bioweapons dealer named Richard Irving. After meeting the contact, they realized that the entire village was acting infected by Las Plagas. The entire mission started to go south from there, even to the point where Alpha Team was massacred, except for the captain, who before dying told Chris that the deal was a setup. And then the captain gave Chris a hard drive containing data retrieved from Irving. They uploaded the data to HQ and told him that the #1 priority was to continue and go arrest Irving. They ended up getting air support, but unfortunately the air support did get attacked and they crashed. Going to the crash, they were ambushed, but they were saved by Delta Team, which was leading by Captain Josh Stone. Josh gave Chris that they analyzed in HQ, and Chris saw a picture of Jill, and now he was 100% determined to go save Jill. After going through the train station and the mines, they catched up to Irving, but in the nick of time, a mysterious woman successfully saved Irving from his arrest. Lucky for Chris and Sheva, they found the next location that Irving was heading to, which was the oil fields in the Landmarsh. So after defeating the BOW, a member of the BSAA named Dave Johnson helped Chris and Sheva go to the rendezvous. Upon arriving, they noticed that the entire Delta Team was murdered by the Nundesu, who also crushed Dave. Chris and Sheva managed to put down the monster by using the mounted machine guns on the vehicle. After defeating the Nundesu, Sheva was talking to Chris about heading back, but Chris said he's not going to head back, he needs to save Jill. Sheva understood and went with Chris. Chris and Sheva made through the lands of the Nitapaya tribe. While going through the lands, they started to notice that there was a lot of tents with the logo of the pharmaceutical company named Tricell. Arriving to the next location, they ended up meeting with Josh, who survived the massacre and started heading for Irving. Fighting through the oil field in the marsh, they caught up to Irving's boat. They went to confront him, but he decided to inject himself with the dominant species Plaga and mutate himself to a giant sea monster. So Chris and Sheva defeated Irving and then started questioning him. And then Irving said that he knew who Chris was and telling them that all the information should be in the nearby cave. Going through the caves, Chris and Sheva were going through some old ruins and they came across an old Umbrella laboratory where they got the progenitor virus from. They went to continue and they saw a large room full of capsules where he saw that Jill was in the capsules. Trying to get to the capsule, they were attacked by a BOW called the U-8. They managed to deal with it, and then Chris noticed that Jill's capsule was empty. When they tried to get to Jill's capsule, they noticed that her capsule was empty. And then they ended up meeting Excella Gioni, a co-founder of Tricell, who refused to tell Chris where was Jill. Later on, they got to meet Excella in person, and then the woman in the cloak came out and started fighting them. That is when Wesker showed up. Wesker revealed that the woman in the cloak the entire time was Jill Valentine. And Wesker went to go fight Chris and Sheva for 7 minutes. After the 7 minutes were done, Wesker had to leave. While trying to confront Wesker, Chris broke into Jill's head, causing Jill to attempt to go against her programming. But Wesker increased Jill's pain and turned her primal with the device that's controlling her on her chest. Then Chris and Sheva removed the device off Jill's chest, which was called the P90. Even though Jill was very dazed, she still got to tell Chris to go stop Wesker. Chris is refusing, but Jill convinced Chris to go stop Wesker because there was no one else to stop him other than Chris and Sheva. Chris and Sheva pursued Wesker and Excella on the large tanker. Finding their way through the deck, they ended up encountering Excella, asking for answers, but she ran with a panic. While she was running, she dropped the briefcase carrying the serum. They didn't know what the serum does, but decided to keep it. They eventually caught up with Excella once again, who was basically in pain. Wesker revealed that she was infected with Ouroboros and she started mutating because she wasn't compatible with the virus. Chris and Sheva retreated and were able to defeat her with the satellite laser device and start heading for Wesker. After the fight, Chris received a call from Jill, who explains that Wesker needs to inject himself with that serum to stay stable, and he's able to overdose with the serum. They ended up encountering Wesker once more and started to fight him, and this time they injected him with the serum. Wesker was in great pain, so he tried to retreat to the plane that he was going to use to release Ouroboros. Chris and Sheva were barely able to catch up, and those three started to fight in the cargo bay. And once again, Chris was able to inject Wesker with the serum. Chris opens up the cargo door and managed to make Wesker fall across the room. Wesker was holding on to dear life on Sheva's leg, making Sheva lose her grip. Then Chris started to get PTSD from losing Jill 3 years prior. Refusing to lose another partner, he grabbed Sheva by the hand and managed to shoot Wesker, sending them out of the plane. Chris and Sheva crashed into a volcano, and then Wesker came out and punctured a container holding the Ouroboros virus and mutated himself. After having a difficult battle with Wesker, they eventually made Wesker fall into lava, and then Jill and Josh came via chopper to come save Chris and Sheva. Not willing to die, Wesker grabbed hold to the chopper, and then Chris and Sheva shot 2 rocket launchers at Wesker, ending him. After that, Chris took Jill back to the United States and took her to rehab. Then he got contact with Barry, saying that he was extremely happy that Jill was alive. Then both Chris and Jill asked Barry to join the BSAA. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and I hope you all stay tuned for my second part of the history of Chris Redfield. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment, share it. I'm out. Deuces.